You are listening to Fika with Vicky on United Public Radio, 107.7 and 105.3 from New Orleans.
Hello everyone and welcome to Fika. We're going to shake things up this week and introduce or launch a new regular segment of Fika. It's called Confessions of a Wannabe Author. We've heard advice from a lot of authors, generous advice, and now it's time to put that to work. Confessions of a Wannabe Author is geared towards those who have started a novel, collection of short stories, or even a play and never finished it. But even if you haven't started your novel yet, write nonfiction, or are working in a completely different project, composing music, perfecting the art of brewing, I believe this may be of help to you. Because, and this is all about building confidence, and I'm going to try something new. So just give me a second while I work this out. For the visual people, the people who are watching, if you're listening, you can always go back and watch us on Roku or Facebook or YouTube. So here we go. I'm going to hit share screen. I'm going to hit window. I'm going to hit. No, that's not the one I want. I'm going to hit. Just give me a second. There we go. And to make that small and click and share and click again. There we go. We have an image. I'm very proud of myself, and I'll be a little bit more confident next time I try that. Okay, so to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. And this is the important aspect of what we're doing here today, because each and every person lives differently. Each and every person is going to write differently. It has to be catered to you. This is one thing I believe I've learned. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So knowing yourself is important. And that's going to come up a few times as we go along. Because I know myself, and I'm going to be using my latest work in progress, a 30-year detour, as an example as we take this journey. Because I learn best from other people's experiences. And so I just thought, you know what? You need to have something that people can see the experience of this, have the experience of this, see how it actually works. I'm fairly pragmatic. So if it doesn't work, I'm not going to listen to it. I'd much rather hear Janice, Brian tell me what they did than to read an article about it. So that's what we're going to do. A 30-year detour is a story about a woman who decides to finish a road trip across Canada, which, you guessed it, started 30 years ago. Does she still have the courage to go solo, ignore those who try to discourage her, and fulfill her dream? And so, does Vicky have the courage to finish this story? We're going to find out over the next few months, the year, whatever it takes. The next thing that's important while we're taking this journey is to be kind to yourself. Okay? You're going to take that screen out, and I'm taking the screen out. You're going to be taking that book out and looking at it. And at no point during that time do I want you to feel negative about it whatsoever. Because then you're just going to feel shame and go right back into hiding again. So I figured out some steps that I think are important to doing this. And okay, and you're not going to want to, oh, please, please, please work. This is my, okay, I see. So you could write some comments while I'm working with this. Don't you love it when things are live and they didn't quite work out the way Vicky planned? Oh. Okay, so I have a lovely little board that says rekindling the flame. And we're just going to have to work without that, I guess, because it's going to, okay. All right. So that is showing. So I want to share that. And no. All right. That only worked for a minute. Okay, we're going to go without it, people. So much for that. Cancel it all. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to concentrate on the show because this is what is happening now. Hi, Susan, and thank you for loving this. You finished a book. You're supposed to be giving advice. Okay, so get it back together, Vicky, and here we go. Okay. Janice has a question and we're going to get to it in just a minute. First of all, we're going to start with a couple of the steps that I've put down after much experience starting novels and not finishing them and learning to know myself in the process of doing that and being kind. So we're going to rekindle the flame with that piece of work. And the number one step is because I believe that taking steps increases confidence. And so so I like to put things into steps like a video game, and you can just level yourself up as you go along. Level your confidence, level your playing field. So the first thing I have is find and face your work in work in progress. And that may sound obvious. You're reaching in and you're pulling it back out of the files. You're grabbing that notebook off the shelf and you're looking at it. But we like avoidance, right? So as long as you're avoiding taking that one little step and just facing it again, you're not going to get anywhere. You can sit there and say, I really should get back to that novel. But the first thing you're going to have to do is face it. Then you're going to have to get reacquainted with it. You're going to have to look at it, go over that work, see how you left it. I'm missing parts that I know are somewhere, so I have to dig them out because I remember the mornings that I wrote them. So get reacquainted. What's wonderful about it? I guarantee that if you look at what you've written before, you're going to find something that you love and say to yourself, who wrote that? Was that me? I must be amazing. So it's important to go back there, reacquaint with yourself. And there's going to be some things that say that you're not so happy about. And that's just part of the package. What would you take out? What would you leave in? You need to get to know that work all over again. So I'm going to pull up a couple of comments here from my writing group. And Janice says, it's not easy for a first-time writer to shed the imposter syndrome. How does one shake that off? Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, the imposter syndrome is very complicated. I was researching it this week. So it's like you're feeling like you're an egomaniac one moment that everything is just amazing, I'm wonderful, and then you feel like someone's going to find out you're not wonderful. So I think in the case of just starting off a novel and no one's telling you that you're wonderful, or you're going back to it, a new author, what you're looking for is to build confidence. I don't think that will become an issue until you start to find some success and you think, oh my goodness, people are going to realize I'm not all that they think I am. When you're still hidden away, I don't think that is going to be an issue yet. So at the beginning of this, I'm just going to concentrate on building the confidence. And once again, a step-by-step process, I think, would even work with that. Just, or stop reading the articles, listening to the hype, if you're not afraid of losing your position, if you have confidence to start again and try again, then you're not going to feel like you're going to be found out. And this is going to. So just don't care and move on to the next work. I guess is what I'm saying today. That may change over time. Brian, as always, is into the process. So Brian says, do you prefer to write on a computer or a longhand? Once again, know yourself. I combine those two things. I write on the computer when I have my research done, and it's the original working out the words. I use notebooks for research, and for I use notebooks for research and ideas, and I write out long things. And then when I can show this, and it even has a coffee ring for Fika. And then when I get to the point where I'm editing and I'm looking at different things that need to be fixed, I will print off the typing and I will look at it that way. For some reason, I just can't really concentrate on the words on the computer. I don't see them the same way as I do if they're in front of me. So that's just, I'm all over the place with that, Brian. I don't have a definitive answer. And Brian is also saying, writing is often about maintaining momentum. Small steps can keep you going. So I'm going to address that because, and I have that on a chart. I don't think I have it written down, but I can remember the facts. When you go back to work on your unfinished work or begin a new work, it's important to have realistic expectations. Now, you can read an article that says you can write a novel in 150 days, but that article may not tell you whether that includes research, whether that includes editing, whether that includes writing an outline to begin with. So we're throwing those articles away. We're throwing 180 days out the window because we all have different lives and we're doing different things. So I looked at my life, and with a lot of different things happening, I realized I basically have, realistically, not, oh, I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to write all night and I'm going to live on coffee. I did that in my 20s. It's not happening now. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings are my optimal window for writing. And I am going to start off with, well, first, look up whatever genre you're going to write. Google is our friend, and it will tell you approximately how many words are for that genre. I'm writing magical realism, so that's going to be around 80,000 words. So if it's shorter because the story doesn't take that long, I'm going to go with shorter. If it's higher because the story takes that long, I'm going to go higher, because this is how these trends change. So because they do change, and I've seen certain different numbers over the time I've been writing. So I'm going to take 80,000 words, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm starting out. Now, I don't need 80,000 words because I already have some words down there. So it's going to take shorter. But I am starting out again. And it takes, apparently, 57 to 70 days to develop a new habit. So it's going to take me some time to get into the swing of those things and get my mind back in writing mode. So I'm going to put 500 words for each of those mornings. Now that doesn't sound like much. This is 1,500 words a week. If I write more, so be it if I'm in the mood. But I'm going to work for 500 words 3 mornings a week, equaling 1,500 words a week, which means in 53.3 weeks, I would have 80,000 words. And you're saying a whole year? Yes. But it's a year when if I'm not touching this book and I'm not building that momentum, it'll be 2 years, 3 years. It's important to realistically look at your life and what you're capable of. Because once again, you're knowing yourself. And I'm also being kind to myself because I'm not saying, oh, Vicky, you need to write more than that. No, that is what I can put in right now. And that is what I'm doing. Okay, so these are all building confidence because you're knowing who you are, you're making things realistic, you're being kind to yourself, and you've gotten to know that manuscript all over again. And you're thinking, you know what? I may be good. I wrote that. I did that. And you're going to realize how much work you've already put into this, even if it's just the outline, even if it's just the idea. And speaking of outlines, Brian is at some point going to ask, are you a plotter or a pantser? And that means, do you have a guideline before you start writing? Or do you just sit down and the typewriter and write? Once again, it's going to be different from different people. So I would love to hear your experiences and what you do. But for me, I realized one of the things, and I'm going to get to that topic, what went wrong with the relationship you and your book have to begin with. I need to outline. I do. I can't be spontaneous unless I'm prepared for all the weather involved. So I highly recommend, I highly recommend, and I have his name, Randy Ingermanson's. Just Google the snowflake method. Okay, this is what I use. Now, I'm not going to explain the snowflake method to you because once again, you can Google the snowflake method and find 500 articles on it. So I like the snowflake method. And I did start to outline with it, but then, and I did a lot of work. I did a lot. But then I thought, no, I want to get writing. So for some people, research and that is a part of writing. I do not want to get halfway through the book and have to decide what kind of car somebody is driving. All right. I want to know that with the character beforehand and what would be their choice. So I am definitely a plotter, and just be honest with yourself, because pantser sounds so much more creative, but you can be creative in the plotting process. You're still creating a story. Citizen says, pantser with episodes of planning, discarding, and repantsing. Yes, I can see that. That is what I ended up doing. I think, and I probably would have, I think even with an outline, your character is going to tell you, no, I want to do this and I want to do that. And even with your ending, you may be sure that you have an ending and that's what you're looking for. But particularly if you've put that down, and your work down and left it for a while, in my case, the ending is going to need to change. So that's one of the things that went wrong with this particular book. There are others where other things went wrong because I really didn't know what I was doing and I just sat down and started writing. And then I ended up with a mess and got frustrated. Okay, so the next topic is writing in dangerous times. Are there times when you shouldn't start a book? Are there times when you should stop writing and putting it away for a while? Now, I'm going to have to get personal with this part because I can't do it without, so I have to be honest about you with my life. But it's not gossipy stuff, so I'm sorry. It's not those kind of confessions. Okay, so I had created a room of my own and I began seriously working on this novel on March 1st of 2001. I had some time. I had finished doing Fika, the original Fika, and I thought, now this is my time to write a book. So remember that date, March 1st. I started in outlining and just getting things together. On March 14th, my lovely husband, who I love very much, let's make this clear off the bat because it might sound like I'm, saying it's his fault. But I'm not. There are reasons for things, not blaming things. So on March 14th, 14 days later, my husband went into an emergency clinic and we found out that he had sepsis and his system was shutting down. And so he's alive and positive, but there's been a lot of appointments and ups and downs and unexpected hospital stays and since then. So when I remembered that, I was fairly, I thought, you know what? You did really good, kid. Okay. I was definitely kind to myself when I thought over those years and what I did accomplish in the book, I thought, you know what? You did okay. Another thing is at that time is that the lockdowns were on. And a lot of writers were saying it messed with their concentration. It was almost like there was a film on everything and their mind couldn't see clearly. It was kind of blurry. And I can see that happening as well. I don't think it affected me so much because I sort of was I wasn't even thinking about that at the time. So, but I can see that. So dangerous times, not, I just like to be dramatic. So I'm calling them dangerous times. And we just discussed that I should have worked more on the outline. So that was one of my things. Janice says, pantser plotter, your characters make that decision for you. Make it a joint project. Yes, you have to work with your characters. You have to know them and you have to work with them. And when they start telling you to do something, you're going to have to do it. For example, this book did not start out as being a magical realism book. It started out as just being women's literature, but then the fairies told me we need to be in this book. So they do a lot of stuff like that. So it is now a magic realism because I listen to them. It may be useful to keep a writing diary, tracking for each session's words written and what sort of work you did. Editing counts as writing, roadblocks, external and internal, and so forth. That is important, Brian. I completely agree with that. It you want to know what you did that day, and so keeping track of the number of words. It can also say if slow, your thinking was my mind on something else. That is one of the things I have. If you see one of your problems popping up, rectify it immediately. Right? So is it that I'm concentrating on something else? Didn't I have enough coffee this morning? And yes, when I start this book off, when I start working on it again, there's going to be a lot of work done that other people might not consider writing. but it's all part of creating this masterpiece that this work that you want to finish. So researching, editing, and that can also help with tomorrow I want to research this. So if you have a little bit of time in between your writing sessions, you might want to go in and pull those things up. You might want to watch that video. On the other hand, you know, when you're building that habit, there are going to be days that it might not work out so well. So you might want to leave that kind of thing for that time, because then you're taking care of it. You're taking care of the business that is at hand. So we mentioned that. Step 1, you find it and face it. Step 2, you get reacquainted with it. Step 3, you're honest with yourself and about what went wrong. And once again, be kind to yourself. There is no I should haves. Oh, I should have done this before. Oh, I should have finished this book. Oh, so-and-so finished their book already. No. You're a separate person. Your life is different. Your experiences are different. You are working on this book now. And if you start that, you're going to stop working on this book now. So don't blame even yourself. So we're being honest about what went wrong. When we find ourselves heading in those directions again, when we find ourselves thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to get that word count out. Everybody thinks that I'm everybody. This is another thing. You need to find support. One of the things that helped me during this is gentle nudges from my writing group, who seem to be up here today. My writing group that understood, they didn't kick me out because I was ready, that understood my situation, and they were there. Why is it important that it's writers? Okay. This is our thing. This is our interest. This is our passion. And if you have someone with you that is totally into it and interested and are a reader and love books, that is amazing. But it's not really fair for us to, hey, I just wrote this passage, I just did this, do you want to read this chapter? I'm having problems with this, and to lay it on to someone who doesn't have that passion. So finding writers, finding a group that works for you is, I think, important, and something that I found. All those other times I was off there doing it by myself. It is important to be able to say, I didn't do so well today. And then to say, okay, but you have a place to confess that. And you don't even really have to confess this. And you don't have to just stick to writing. If you're researching a topic, something's happening in the news, all of these things are going to inspire you. And laugh. Okay, laughing is important. It is part of the creative process in which, while you are laughing, you aren't thinking about anything else. So it shuts your mind down for a minute, and then it's rebooting again. So all fresh stuff coming through. Laughing is important. So now you're going to fall. You've done this. You've worked it out. You know what went wrong. You're going to start this again. And now you're going to have to, well, you just naturally will fall in love all over again with that book. Find out what made you love it in the first place. If you're just beginning a book, what is it that you really like about that idea? If you just, you need to realize that this is the most important thing you're going to do. So, no, you'll do other important things. But this needs to be a priority, and it has to be love. I don't think you can write a book unless you love it and the subject and the characters and all of those things, because why would you go back? The relationship is still broken. You may, and that's a question to put out. Is there ever a time you should stop with a book and move on to something else? For those out in the comment sections. And Genesis has seconded that. One thing most writers learn is that much of the time their family doesn't want to hear about the book. That's why I am part of an online writers group. Support is important. And yes, that's what I'm saying. And it's not their fault. It's not really fair. It's like if someone came home and said, I'm loving golf, you need to play golf. You know what? That's that's the point. I'm sorry, Janice asked another question. I got sidetracked from this one. It is important to find other writers to support you because they really get it. I mean, people will say, I don't understand why you talk about those characters like they're real people. Well, number one, don't tell me they're not. And number two, if I don't feel like they're real, how is the reader going to feel that they're real? Janice, no. While you're thinking about this question, what I'm saying is, I may come to that later with Dangerous Times, but is there a time when you should give up on a project, a particular project? It's not working for you, the storyline's not working, you've lost your passion for it. You just and move on to another project and let it sit. Let it be a work in progress forever or until you find the passion to work on it again. Susan is asking, because I know the answers. What if you wrote a novella and put it away because your beta readers didn't like it, but still want to rewrite it with big changes? I think you need to, that's one of the points where you pull it out because you're the one that's writing it and it may just not be their thing. So I would, I don't know how much work I had to have ahead of me with these things, but I would pull it out. I would face it. I would look at it and say, where did this go wrong? And make those changes and try it again. If you have a passion for doing that. I mean, you're doing a lot of other things, but if you have the passion for that book, I would say go for it, Susan. And just what kind of novella is it? Now I want to know. We'll talk about that more later. Brian says, when I'm deep into the writing process, my characters often talk to me and not always in a positive way. Sometimes they just won't shut up. Does this happen to you or is that just me? First of all, my characters have a hard time finding a chance to talk with me because I'm always talking. No. I think they will come at annoying times, and especially when I'm particularly okay. I mean, there's something we call them characters. I believe it is is it subconscious? Our subconscious that is talking to us through the characters. So our subconscious is telling us something is wrong with this story, whether we want to listen to it or not. And so we should probably listen to it and you know, act accordingly. So that is it. The novella I'm putting, oh, that's you again, Brian. Oh, that's Ben. Hi, Ben. How are you today? What does Ben have to say? Ben says, I came to realize a while ago for me is part of my process. I have a whole folder of ideas and part written conversations and chapters, and I now use it as the workroom folder. They often come out years later. And this is true. Always keep ideas, always keep them back there if you're working on other things. But sometimes we get older than Ben. we start to think, oh my goodness, I'm running out of time. And I think that is probably, not the best way to go with these things, because I, I don't know how to put this, but if something happens, we won't care whether we got it published or not. So, you know, that's that's the way it is. Okay, so the novella's a cat in space story. Interesting. All right, thanks for clearing that up, Susan. Okay, so the question I had before was, is there ever a time we should just let go of a project? I'm saying this because I have a tendency to cleanse through fire. This is my thing. And I was just realizing that there were some things that I got so frustrated with that when we had a bonfire, I put them in it. And I am totally against the banning of books and obviously the burning of books. And yet I burnt my own. And I don't want to analyze what that means. But um but I have to stop reading comments in the middle of a statement. But do you think there's times that some projects are just not worth going for? Well, this is true. And in many other ideas of life, there is, Ben is saying, if I was a Buddhist, I would have the next life to look into that. But if I was a Buddhist, I wouldn't have the if I was a Buddhist, I wouldn't have any expectations on myself to finish the novel. I would simply accept what is been and be and learn satisfaction. Is it wholesome to be thirsting after this novel's completion? I don't know. So yes, there the next life, but I would like to think that I had moved. Oh my gosh, can you imagine having to take all this unfinished work into my next life? No. We're back to the fire. Okay, so writing in dangerous times, generally speaking. Do I want to go there? How much time do we have left? Okay, there's something else I was sort of looking into covering. And that is research and what you know now. And making lemonade out of lemon. When I began this book, it is about a woman who was working as a caregiver for her husband, who was living as a caregiver for her husband. And so I was doing research in that area, and I was thinking, what are we going to give this fictional husband? When my own husband got sick, it is not that I was taking advantage of that or I was happy of that, but making lemonade out of lemons and doing what I knew. I have decided that his ailment is going to be kidney disease, because that's what this has eventually got into. I've had to take training for home dialysis so that he can continue with the life that he has. So I learned all about the disease and the process, and I know that disease. So I'm going to now use that as her husband's ailment, because I know it. Not that her husband reflects my husband, but they're going to have the same ailment because I know that I've experienced it. I felt it. And I think this is important. If there's been a time and you look at it, be open to the new things that you have learned. Be open to changes in the world. So with this, I'm going to have to change the ending of the book because, well, I won't get into that much different. But because I feel like it's a series, I can give the ending I did have to another character in the story. So Be open to change, not only your characters' experiences, but yours as well. What is the one thing you'd want readers to know about writers? What is the one thing you'd want writers to know about readers? Okay, first of all, if you want it depends on why you're writing the book. Okay, are you writing it because you've had a lot of experiences in life and you want to share them and your kids don't want to listen? No. Are you writing because you want this to hit the market and you want to sell it? And so you have to really know the readers that are you as to know the readers that you are targeting. You're not going to please everybody with your book. So you need to understand who is going to read your book. Do not talk down to them. Do not put them in stereotypical categories. Write to them. Make their characters, your characters, as individual as they are, and that will make your characters more real to them. What is the one thing you'd want readers to know about writers? I would like readers to know just how much work writers put into their work. It is a work of faith. They have no idea if this is going to be accepted well, if it is going to earn them anything. They just sit there and write. So you have to understand the courage that takes. Then there's the courage of putting a part of yourself, because whether the books are about them or not, meeting a lot of authors, having read their books, I would say something of that writer slips into the book. So I think that they're putting themselves out there. They're putting their work out there. They're putting the same with any artist, a musician, a artist at a festival or a Comic-Con. They're putting themselves out there as and just sitting behind a table or a computer screen and saying, "What do you think? What do you think of this work I did?" So I would like the audience, the readers, to know how much the authors put into these books and to treat them tenderly. Now, back to the other part. What would I want writers to know about readers? I want to make I want anyone that puts the book out there to do the best that they can. We are living in a world where we have more opportunities than ever. And that's with the opening of indie writers. And people still think indie writers are just people who failed to get their books published by a publisher. But publishers do not only look at quality of books, they look at what's trending at the time. They look at there's just a whole lot of things that go beyond the quality of the work. You're still so, and a lot of authors are making this decision because you still have to do a lot of your promotional work. You have to do a lot. You're not getting as much with publishing as you once did. That being said, if a publisher swooped in and said, "Vicky, I'm going to take your," I'd say, "Okay, fine, take it away." But that you're not guaranteed the quality of the work because it is published. A lot of people are choosing to go indie because it's faster and they're getting older and they don't have that time to stick around. They can't depend on that next life then. And they you make more money on the ebooks for sure. So they can sell their books less. They can sort of work with the markets a little more flexibly, except on the hard copies, because those have to do with paper, and that's an entirely different thing. So if you're writing, consider that book you're putting out there may be purchased by someone who has only 99 cents left on their gift card, and this is the book they're going to read that evening and think, is it worthy of them? I have no idea what I just said, but I think I said it passionately. So it works for me. So that is what I would like writers to know about readers, and readers to know about writers. Just respect each respect each other and each other's feelings in the matter. So, what writing in dangerous times. Now you're all listening in the sideline there, so I would like some comments on there. I wrote amazingly during dangerous times when I was running to the hospital, appointments every day, for my husband, rearranging. That's another thing that happened. Rearranging the house, losing my writing room. I still managed over that year or so to I don't know, to write 50,000 words. I thought I had more. I might have more. I have to do a massive bit of outlining and a whole ton of research. So I still managed that, but I had a little bit of help. Do you guys think that there is a time during writing in dangerous times? No, there is a time to put a book away and deal what needs to be dealt with. There is a more positive time to start a book. Any of those things. I would love to hear your. I would love to. So is that during the lockdowns? I don't want to say the C word because it's getting people shut down. So I don't want to chance it. So Susan said, I wanted to create an alternative to the crazy world we live in now. And I think that's important because when you're writing in a different time, in a different era, in a different place, in a different world, you're not dealing with some of those questions you might have if you're dealing with now. For example, one of the things that sort of got to me was the idea of, should I be writing people with masks on? Is this going to be the way things are? Is the world do people want to remember the world the way it had been? Will the world go back to the way it was? There are all of these questions that, yes, once again, readers who don't understand, writers are asking themselves. So that was kind of the thing. So yes, I do believe that when the novel becomes difficult, and I wish I had thought of this at the time, so don't do what Vicky did, writing short stories, writing out of that context in a different world, getting you away from it as well, is kind of a good way to go. So yes, Susan, thank you for that reminder that we can always go away, and that's sort of the point of fiction. So we covered writing what you know. Ask yourself, what do I know? Knowing is easier than research, and sometimes I think it comes across as possibly more realistic because you know what something smells like, you know how it feels, you know, and you can imagine those things. I do a lot of imagining in my novel, but knowing is to okay, but this is a good one. Writers need to learn to write using all sorts of tools, paper, computer, phone, so they can maximize the opportunity to get the words out of one's head. So, Brian, are you saying so that you can write in all different areas, or just in times, or just that it is sometimes nice to change things up and get them out? I'm not talking about like the inability to get to the process. When I asked the question about the thing, about is there ever a bad time to write? Because that was more of an emotional thing. But if we're taking about the location thing, I think that would be depending on the person, if they can write in all different kinds of places. Like there are people who find it harder to focus when stuff is going on around them. But I use all sorts of different things. So I don't think I could use the phone. It's too small for me. I don't even like doing like emails and stuff on the phone. So I do use the phone for research. But yes, the more different tools you have in the your belt, the more you can use them. So, but you haven't still answered my question outright, and I'm really interested in your answers to this, guys. Do you think there is a time when it may be too difficult to write because of what is happening in your life and what is I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm just wondering if there is. I mean, if I had to go back, I wouldn't stop writing, but I would have taken a break from the novel and done some short story writing or flash fiction or whatever, something. But okay. So and Janice is saying keep a pad beside your bed, and if you get those ideas where the characters are speaking to you while you sleep or first thing in the morning, that's when I kind of get my ideas. You can you can write those down before you forget them. Once again, this is very important for those of us who decide to write later in life. And I do not like the term late bloomers. Once again, there's a negative idea behind that. I think they're appropriate time bloomers. There are things that happened earlier in their lives or things they were busy with and they just didn't get to the writing, and now they do. So this is the right time for there. So yes, keep those pads by the phone, by the bed, and or you can use your phone if you're someone that, I mean, you can use the mic, but then it depends on if there's somebody else with you there and you're going to wake them up. So you could, and it would be easier just to say it, I think, than to write it down. But use what is good for you. As always, we are all different and we're all going to do different, write different ways. And that's what I want to demonstrate here, because you read certain articles and that, and they basically tell you this is the way it is, this is the way it should be done. And no, 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 no. Put those articles away. Also, because I read an article. I read an article. Yes, I realize how ironic that is. But I read an article that said one of the things that is causing so much anxiety in this world is that people are reading too many articles about how to do things, and then they're stuck. They don't know which one to choose. And so in a world where we've been taught to take in all kinds of information, this is not about news articles, this is just about writing articles about all types of information, and just go on what's best. We must choose what the best one is. I am saying read, find what you need, and then put those articles away, because they're only going to stress you out. And Janice is saying she thinks there could be a time to take a break, when things are, you don't have the time and you have yes, Susan is agreeing. She says life throws curveballs, and going back to writing is a blessed relief after dangerous times pass. Brian is saying to minimize the excuse for not writing, as Jan mentioned, keep notebook and pen next to your bed. I'd expand that to keep notebooks everywhere in the house. I love Brian, but and I I I I can't deal with like a ton of clutter everywhere, and I have enough right now in my house. It's not that big house. If you have a huge house, leave notepads all over the place. But I can definitely get either in the chair I read in downstairs or my office to write these things down. Yes, I agree, Brian. No tears, pain in the writer, no tears, pain in the story or the reader. I agree with this. As you once said, spare the trauma, spoil the writer. But do we need to be, then journal and keep those thoughts for another time. I didn't say give up writing. I just said maybe make some projects. Give yourself a break. Be kind to yourself and journal those feelings and use them later on. Janice says, because now we're going to have our. Janice says, keeping a notebook everywhere in the house doesn't work with cats. And no, because they will start writing haiku like Brian's cat. And then you have to publish a book and people don't know if you read it or the cat. So Eddie got into Brian's notebook and started writing himself. So we have different ideas. But I'm going to say I'm giving myself a break. Brian, that is so no, that is not the simple answer, because not everybody's life is. I'm going to put Brian's answer up here, and then I'm not going to writers group afterwards. I have to do some dialysis, so it's want to be a writer, put butt in chair and write. And I agree, it is work. You need to do the work, but. And there is going to be a but here because we are humans. There is a thing out there that says if you want to do something, no excuses. And I don't think there are excuses. I'm not making excuses for myself. Actually, I'm pretty impressed with what I achieved over this time. But I am making reasons. There are reasons. I thought other writers were supposed to be supportive. Brian, I was telling you as there are reasons why it may not be a good time for you. So that is very put your butt in the chair and write is the way to write. I agree. And building momentum is important, as I pointed out. Developing that habit, which is going to take you 57 to 70 days to just naturally follow it. But developing that habit and all of those things are very important. If you just dream about being a writer, you're not going to go get that work in progress. You're not going to start with that outline. You're not even going to look up, after I just said, don't read all the articles. You're not even going to look up an article on different outlines or seeing what other people do. If I had my ideal world, I would just have a huge wall with colorful Post-its and whatever outlining everything for me so I could just look up at it. And because I think I'm very tactile. So these are all things that have to be done. But what we're looking at here is the thoughts behind those processes, the actual things that happen in the world and how we're going to work with them. So a way to keep writing is in dangerous times, as I'm calling them, is to maybe take a break from that project. Journal is important and keep tracks of your feelings and emotions so you can use them at a later date. Choose something different. Write a haiku every day, or not every day. There are things that happen that are going to mess with your plans. That is a part of life. That is something that any of us of a certain age know and realize. The thing is that when you're able to, is to go back. Stop saying the I should haves and work and start from today with what you have, regardless, Susan, if other people didn't like it, you are going to write what you wrote, and there will be someone it reaches and it speaks to. And we're going to go to that next time with some of my stranger writing. And I hope other people share some of their strange writing, like their cat grabbing their notebook from the kitchen and starting haiku. And I would like that in the perfect world to be next week and then go on to a monthly schedule, so that, we can work on whatever we work on and then discuss what we've been doing that. I do have the possibility of a couple of authors, though, accepting that date. They've accepted to be on Fika. Janice might be interested in that. We may be traveling to Ireland soon, but I'm not sure of dates yet. So if I can keep the 6th open, I will, and we'll be back here next week doing this once more before going on to some guests. If not, I will let you know on Facebook. You can go on Facebook. I am going to post a couple of those charts that I made on Facebook. You can just go to Facebook, just search Fika with Vicky on Facebook, and keep you updated on what's happening then. I want to tell them how much I appreciate the support from my online writing group. You guys are the best. Yeah, even Brian. And thank you for that. For the rest of you, if you've got those works sitting there, if you're starting something new, if any of these things, come on in, spend some time with us. Let us know what you're working on and what helps you. And that will either be the 6th or the 29th, depending on some authors. So until then, may your coffee be hot and your stories sweet. Thank you for listening, everyone, and get writing.
You are listening to Fika with Vicky on United Public Radio, 107.7 and 105.3 from New Orleans.